We turn to 10 News reporter Jim Matheny with more on how GPS is defining bears roaming.
I know when that bear starts showing up around people, that bear's lifespan is greatly decreased.
The Great Smoky Mountains stands as a great sanctuary with 800 square miles to let wild bears act naturally. Biologist Ryan Williamson helps keep wildlife wild in a national park with more than 11 million visitors. Sometimes he has to separate them.
Bear will go in there, pulls the trigger, the door will trap. The bear will be there waiting for me the next day when we come in.
He relocates bears deeper in the park, farther away from people. But then what happens?
In the past, with the old technology, it'd be really easy to just lose track of those animals.
In 2015, several agencies teamed up to fund research by Tennessee grad student Jessica Braunstein that set 27 problem bears free and tracked them for a year with GPS collars. Then they did the same with a control group of what you'd consider good backcountry bears, not causing problems.
We thought there were two kinds of bears, front country bears and backcountry bears, and that 95% of the bears were thought to be backcountry bears, you know, bears that went about their business, living in the woods and had very little contact with humans.
Those front country bears are the ones that live close to countless cabins, dumpsters, and backyards where they can find an easy meal. That's why the city of Gatlinburg took a proactive step in 2000, created the only ordinance zone along the Smokies that requires bear-proof trash cans.
The thought process, if we had a boundary that was bear-proofed, that maybe they wouldn't go beyond that if they didn't find food and garbage.
Now that the GPS study is done, these collars showed whether it's a good bear, conflict bear, front country, back country, it doesn't matter. Almost every single bear leaves the park to find food.
What was surprising, how far out into the communities these bears are going.
And it's not just males roaming in search of a mate. Even females with cubs will travel long distances.
We would never have seen this with old technology. Female bear we caught in Elkmont Campground. She took off looking for food, went all the way up here near Pigeon Forge. She looped over here, spent some time over at Walter State Community College through downtown Sevierville, downtown. These bears are moving from one side to the other and in and out of the park, all the way across the park.
If he's not getting food in Gatlinburg, it doesn't mean he's not going to go to Cataloochee or go to Cosby or go to Townsend.
In Gatlinburg, biologists say that ordinance zone was a great start in 2000. Now it's not even a speed bump.
Things have changed a lot. We got a lot more people, we got a lot more bears, and we got a lot more visitors.
Scientists estimate there are 1,600 bears in the park, triple the amount in the 1990s. And the amount of people living in counties around the park has increased by 120,000.
One thing the GPS collar technology has showed us, there is no farther and deeper into the woods for the territory that these bears cover.
There are very few bears who are not impacted by what goes on outside the park. The park is huge, but it's not big enough to have self-contained bear population.
The study makes a myth of some long-time assumptions. Biologists say it requires people to change their mindsets for bear-proofing their yards and government policy on trash.
It needs to be safe for both the visitors and for the animals.
Bears are expanding our bear-proofing. We are behind the curve.
These maps and this study redefines who lives in bear country in East Tennessee.
And the black bear is one of those iconic things that we want to pass on to protect it for our future generations to enjoy.
In the Great Smoky Mountains, Jim Matheny, WBIR 10 News.